Hi friends. I thought we would take a dive into the past, maybe work with the palette and I myself have not worked with for quite some time. In fact, I completely forgot when Subculture dropped from Anastasia Beverly Hills. July 25th of 2017. Wow. 5 years ago, we encountered, I think, a palette that received mixed reviews. I was going through my drawer today and I said, okay, what else can I do besides Pat McGrath and Natasha Denona? Although I will be completing that series for show. I just wanted to maybe dive into a palette that was older than my Pat McGrath and Natasha Denona ones. And then I saw this. I completely forgot about this, fam. And if it's your first time here, hi, I'm Alicia. I love to do eyeshadow tutorials, although I know those are no longer the most popular things to see on YouTube anymore. I frankly don't care because I don't have an unlimited budget to keep buying new makeup to review. So I'm just gonna go this route because this is what's more sustainable for me as a content creator. Thank you so much for understanding. And also, I thought it would be interesting to revisit a palette with me now. New brushes, new technique, better blending, and also a different perspective, as I had mentioned when showcasing Natasha Safari palette, and I recognized that the best way to approach those shadows was a color blocking method, more about tapping on the color versus blending it. And I think upon using this and seeing other YouTube videos about it, people are running into muddiness quite often. I think it's because you had to be a little more strategic with how you use these shades. And I think Anastasia mattes typically are not the most blend friendly. They can muddy up a lot if you're not careful. I also wasn't using the best brushes back then, and now mafude, okay? This actually might stand a chance. That's all I'm saying. So with the details out the way, why don't you come in a little closer? What should we begin with? I'm actually quite excited, I have to say. Well, let's get a quick rundown of the palette. The majority of Subculture, as you see, is the matte, right? And then we have this very hard pan shade called Cube, which is, I think, an opalescent type of a moment. It's very hard to see. It's very light. I would liken this to Pat's Iridescent 005, Iridescent Pink 003, excuse me, wrong number, with that opalescent flip. Next we have Electric, which is a lime type of duochrome, again very light. And lastly we have Adorn, which is a warm bronze shade. This is more of a true metallic found in the palette, and the rest of the shades in here are matte. I will approach this from an all matte standpoint. I think mostly the looks I'll have in this video will be mostly the mattes, but what I'm looking forward to mostly is how to now arrange these shades in a way that will produce beautiful eye looks, because I do really love the concept of Subculture. It's grungy, it has a little more edge to it. The shades selected in here are a little more muted. They have like a fall feel with a little bit of like round. And because of the fact you only have 3 metallics, well, I would argue that Cube and Electric have lost their metallicness. You know, they're a little flat, but Adorn really nice. And the rest of the mattes in here, like New Wave and Edge, New Wave being this like carnelian. It's hard to see on camera, it's a little washed out, but it's like a light orange shade in Edge with its mustard yellow tone. Yeah, we're gonna get into it, it's gonna be fun. So I have now the Viseart primer on my lids. I would like to finish this completely before moving on to a new primer, but I'm looking forward to it because it's not my favorite. I like it, but I feel like I can find something better. Let's start with Mercury. So if I were to approach this tutorial as if, okay, you got Subculture or something like it, how can we use this as an everyday palette? Well, maybe you go in with Dawn. Depending on your skin tone will determine which color will be not as impactful as the other shades in here. I would like to start off with Mercury because Mercury is this taupey type of a brown shade. It has a little gray in it, which I think really nice. This is my Bisyodo eyeshadow. I think it's the ES01. And this is like a one and done type of a brush for me in terms of its design. It's pretty big, but it has a really nice taper to it that fluffs color nicely through the crease and gets it on there quickly. But at the same time, there is a lot of bristle in here that will appropriately blend the shade evenly without me having to use another brush. So that is Mercury on its own. I think a lovely color with the gray. You could also just place this all over the lid if you wish to use it as, let's say, a one and done matte eye look. If you wanted to tone it down, however, you can use Dawn, and I'm using a smaller brush here. Now, Dawn packs a lot of punch, and that's why I'll tap off a little bit and run it on the edge of Mercury, just slightly here, to create a softer gradient and to blend down the color a little bit. I think that's a lot better. Kind of gives it a little more structure, doesn't travel as high towards the brow as it did initially. Now we can go several ways here. We can go in with Access, which is this deep teal, rowdy, more of a deep aubergine shade. I could go in with All Star, and what I think people were running into challenge wise is how to combine these shades so the finished eye look won't appear muddy, heavy looking on the lids. I think you also have to realize you have to commit to a heavier look when using Subculture. I think that's just the tone of the palette and what you have to work with concept wise, so be prepared for that when you open this up. I want to go in with All Star because I think that'll be a beautiful pairing. This more like a maroon burgundy matte. However, no, you can go in with Rowdy. I think Rowdy is a great way to go to apply on Mercury. Fudge is going to be maybe a little more neutral. I wouldn't go with Fudge though. Maybe Fudge is a little too warm for Mercury. So either Rowdy, Mercury, even Access or Mercury. Ooh, actually, Untamed. Untamed could be a nice combination. I'm going in with All Star. Doing it. Now using my Mizuho blender, I'll have all the brush numbers and letters down below because I'm sorry, I can't remember all of them. Shame on me. Let's tappity tap All Star on. And I'm not swirling and twirling. This is important because if you start swirling and twirling, I feel you will run into problems, okay? You run into the muddiness or the risk of the shadow turning muddy. You only start to blend when you want to pull the rest of the color through the crease, and I'm using very light pressure here to combine it with Mercury, and I think that looks okay, but you got to be careful not to pick up a ton of product, otherwise it can look very heavy through the crease. All right, what can we do on the actual lid? Well, you could do All Star or you can apply Dawn. So this is the more beige matte. If I were to take a shader brush and tap it over All Star as well as the rest of the lid, that will add a little bit of lightness to Mercury as well. And I'm pulling it from the inner corner and overlapping that shade over All Star as well. And I think that's quite pretty. It's a nice surprise, you know? Now, if you see here, this is why I like to have a little bit of concealer erasing going on. Not necessarily applying concealer, but whatever leftover you have on your brush, you can use just to tap down a little bit of the shadow. If you need to reapply, you can go back into the brush you used just to kind of refine that blend. Okay, not too bad. Going in with All Star, the matte burgundy shade, outer quarter of the lower lash line, connecting it to what we have on top, and then going in with Mercury, overlapping with All Star, and then completely going, so I got casualties. So be careful with that shade. Maybe use a smaller brush. I like very hazy looking eyes, so definitely use a brush that's appropriate for that application. If you don't want it to travel low, then using a tighter brush that stays right under the lash line will be a better pick. But I like a little bit of like sickly eye look, you know. I can't help myself. Please forgive the constant light change that's going on. It has been a bizarre last few minutes, going from sunshine to cloudiness to cloud sun. I mean, the shift in light is just nuts. Okay, now my Bisyodo small brush, I think I want to go in with Cube. It's not going to look like anything. I might actually have to wet the shade because it's very old, but I want to place this shade as my inner lower lash line color of choice. And with a little bit of finagling, I think we're able to press the shade into the skin successfully, that now you can see that pink flip. Okay, not too bad. Very smoky, as you see. Very smoky. But as I like to do, after all has been blended, just go around, kind of pat down. You know what? It could be worse. Taking my Bisyodo brush, a more traditional blender. This is Sokohogo, so it's going to have a little more blend power than my Canadian. I think I'm going to go in with Destiny. Destiny is the softer olive here. And you probably already assumed that, yes, we're going to go in with the green. Now, despite this palette being 5 years old, I mean, the matte, at least, still pack quite a punch. So that's a nice surprise. Which is why I feel you should still tread carefully, build the color so you have control over how the color blends on the eyes, because it's much harder to take away than it is to add in. Not bad. That actually looks quite nice. That blended lovely. I had a better blend than Mercury, but it could have been the brush. I don't know. I like my Bisyodo brush though. Untamed, which is a deeper green, not as deep as Access, although I would consider Access to be more of a teal. Tapping that on the outer part of my lid. Now taking my Bisyodo Canadian Squirrel brush, this is flat on both sides, and I want to now place Untamed on the majority of my lid. I think I want to take a little bit of edge, this more yellowy mustard shade, very lightly with my blender over the edges of Destiny. Very lightly. I don't want to overwhelm the olive. I just want to give it a little more of a prominent gradient, and I think this is the best way to go if you want to showcase edge. Instead of going in with edge first and then the olive, this probably will be better. I don't know for sure, but I prefer this method. What do you think? That's not too bad. That's actually quite nice. Now, I wanted to go in with Access. Access is the teal. Right here. Don't know how much of it will appear if I layered it over Untamed. Let's see if we were to go in on the very outer part. You could kind of see it. It's a soft distinction. I don't think it's as prominent as if you would have applied this on a much lighter color, of course. But to reinforce just the feel of this eye, you most certainly can layer that over Untamed. I am taking, however, that same shade under the lash line. Whoa. I'm pulling it through the majority of my lash line, and I think this is an appropriate time to use Electric, that lime green, now on the not only inner lower lash line, the inner corner as well. This could just be our highlighter shade, and I'm using a very small brush because I need to pick up a lot. However, I probably could get away with using a bigger shader brush. I just got to do the wiggle. There we go. Get more on the skin. Aha. Now carefully brushing over that matte shade so it could just look more like a veil overlapping the matte. This is like my safari eye that I did in my safari tutorial. Absolutely. Taking edge very lightly here on the bottom just to smooth that out and offer a different color to the mix here. All right, not too bad. Let's apply some lashes and I'll be right back. Here is round one. So what do we think? I like them. I like the looks. I think these turned out better than when I first bought the palette back in 2017. Maybe now because I know what I'm doing. But also having a little bit of strategy, and I think just appreciating the concept of the palette, knowing that the looks I'll create will be a little more grungy, a lot more smokier. However, I am curious to see when starting off with a lighter shade where that could possibly lead us. So I was planning to do 4 looks. This might have to turn into 6. I don't know. I don't want to disappoint you. But we're going to do 2 more looks at least. I'll let you know how I feel after that round. With all that to say, let's take all these lashes and I'll be right back. All right. New Wave. Let's do New Wave first. I think we can slowly start to build the mood and things. I'll use a blender first for this guy. Now, New Wave, when applied on me, pulls a little more like yellow orange. I think you can detect that on camera. So know that in advance. Yeah, if you don't want it to look like that, maybe don't apply it solo. But I think we're okay. If you want to create another gradient here, you can use Dawn or you can use Roxy. I think Roxy will be a nice topper shade. So I'm pulling that over the edge of New Wave, and definitely a different departure, yeah, from what we started with in the first round. The olives and the burgundies. This is definitely warmer. I think that's a nice gradient to create between the orange and the, how would I categorize this shade? I think this is like a peachy coral. Now for me, the easiest way to go will be to apply fudge. If you want more, a little bit of smoke, you could also just go in with the Adorn. You could also apply cube and have that, the majority of the lid have that opalescent look. I do want to see how fudge does. If I were to tap this, not only on the outer corner, but the inner as well. I think tapping is the best method to use here, but beware, because you will get fallout. So if you want to avoid that, you do your eyes first, okay? I'm gonna lightly whisk. Not a total disaster, as I'll probably apply fudge on the outer part of my lower lash line anyway. But this color does pack a punch. Now, I completely covered New Wave. I think you could only see Roxy now on the very top here. I could go with New Wave, however, and see how that will change the shade. But, you know, fudge packs a punch. I think I overdid it. Okay, so good to know. Good to know. We shouldn't have gone there. It's fine. Let's do Adorn. I'm just going to take Adorn with my finger and place it on where I didn't have any mattes. If you wanted, you could have applied more primer there instead. But I think despite, again, this palette being on the older side, Adorn has respectable stick. Going back in with New Wave because I'm trying to bring back a little bit of that light orange. I could introduce it to my lower lash line, so why don't I do that? I'll just do New Wave on the lower part of my lash line. Now unfortunately a little bit of fudge started to pull away from my skin, so I don't know what that's about. It could be because the shadow is drier, you know, there's a lot of variables that go into it. I definitely pulled New Wave far too low, but that's okay. I'm just gonna tap around. And for the inner corner, I'm just gonna do cube again. Keep it very simple. This time, put the light back on. This time with my shader brush, because I feel the wiggle will pick up more product. Don't like how this looks, unfortunately. I think this shade does not do well on top of another matte unless you keep tapping it down. And I'm putting on more Adorn over top. Not bad, not my favorite. It also is due to the fact that when switching, or rather applying and reapplying shadows, I teared up a little bit here, and that might cause the unevenness, but evenness. I just wanted to see, you know, it's not a disaster. I'm not completely in love with how it turned out, but I just wanted to see, you know, take a different route. It's all good. I'm gonna be okay. I know I said I would do 6 looks. However, don't be upset. I do want to do the following and wrap it up. I'm taking Edge now as our prominent lid shade. Slap it right on top, and I'm using my Bisyodo brush, a flat shader, a rather hefty flat shader, and that's definitely going to lay down the color quickly on the lid. As far as what to place on the crease, you know, I think I just want to keep it at this color and use the majority of it from lash line to crease, because I now want to use Rowdy, this aubergine matte, as a wing liner. You could probably also use this as your smoke shadow of choice instead of applying it as a liner as I am now here. You could tap it on the outer part of your lid, inner part of your lid, but pairing the mustard yellow with this aubergine, I think quite beautiful. But I also understand this color is hefty, so if you wanted to incorporate the shade in some manner, but in a subdued way, then liner is always the way to go. I'm just carefully making this as smooth as possible. I definitely, whoa, casualties. I definitely applied too much on the brush, and this is a very soft matte. There's a lot of kickback in this palette, so you have to make sure you tap off any excess shadow, because look how it traveled into my waterline. Let's try this again. Not all is lost. Just finish what you're doing, missy. Not bad, not bad. Although I do wish the wing angle was higher. That's better. That's better. I know it looks obvious, and I tried to erase my mistake, but sometimes that's what you gotta do, you know what I mean? So if using a concealer or whatever complexion product that you feel comfortable using to carve out your wing, just make sure you blend away that application so it doesn't look obvious. But that's much better. It went a little too high there. It's fine. It's totally fine. Not mad at it. I'm happy with it. I do want to experiment with introducing another shade to this look, because I think having like Destiny, the light olive shade, as our lower lash line smoke will be interesting. Oh, well, Alicia, you know, you just gotta go for it sometimes and then say why. It could be saved, however. I think we got it. We got it. I just applied a little too much. Let me wipe my concealer brush off and go in with just a little more concealer. Or I think probably what will work better is to wipe it off first with my Bioderma, but just for the sake of time. Okay, that's not too bad. I keep forgetting these mattes. If you could pick up a lot of product. Yeah, these are very soft mattes that once they come in contact with your brush, beware. But now that, you know, we saved it, barely, not too bad. I'm happy we went that route. Okay. However, I thought it would be nice to go in with Adorn, the bronzy metallic shade here on the lower inner part of my lash line and use electric now, that lime, as our inner corner highlight here. All right, let's apply some lashes and I'll be right back. And here's the final round. Yes, I know I mentioned doing 6 looks. I'm sorry. For me personally, I think I kind of met my threshold in terms of how I can use Subculture in the future. Yes, you can do 10, 12 looks with this palette. I mean, just taking a look at it again, you can apply the deeper shades all over your lid and crease and call it a day. I would say be careful with the layering, because this is a palette where the shades themselves are full bodied, and the more you combine, the more risk you have into muddiness territory, okay? For instance, the first demo we did, and I just combined Mercury with All Star, these two here, I think that's a simple way to go, instead of going with All Star, with Mercury, with Edge, with Untamed. Could you do that? Yes, but maybe 2 shades, one being on the outer corner, the other through the crease, and introducing another one on the lid, and not necessarily combining more than 2 shades on the outer corner, which I think is the issue with these shades. You have to kind of move the region when applying these mattes. You have to move where you apply them. You can't just zero in on one section of the eye. Then of course you mix more than 2 shades, it's all going to look like blah. But you could do another shade entirely on the lid, or even maybe on the inner corner, and take Cube and Electric as your main stage inner corner highlight shade. So I have to just change the way I apply shadow when using Subculture. The same philosophy I explain when using Safari from Natasha Denona. Now, I'm not saying that's what you have to do. I am simply explaining how that is the best method for me in terms of how I can best approach Subculture. And I'm happy that I revisited it, since again, I have different brushes. I'm a little more confident in how I apply eyeshadow. My perspective has changed a ton. So I will definitely use this palette again. Is it my favorite? No, not necessarily, because these are some shades, and there are a few in here that you can get away with one and done looks on a daily friendly basis that might not look super smoky, but overall it's pretty smoky. I would say maybe Dawn, Fudge, and Adorn are like my daily shades. Mercury I would use very carefully, not pick up as much like I did during my first round if I wanted to wear that solo golo, or maybe Roxy all over the lid and then Cube on the lid, just to kind of have that little opalescent flip. I could also do New Wave all over the lid, or you could do one shade on the lid and another on the lash line, lower lash line, excuse me, like we did on this eye. Or take the deeper colors and commit to a wing liner using that shade. Those will be my recommendations in terms of techniques with Subculture. Let me know if you have Subculture, if you've been using it, if you have a palette like it, if you have eyeshadow singles and you created your own Subculture palette. I hope this video helped in encouraging you to go back into your collection and maybe revisiting a palette that you have not in quite some time. I'll see you down in the comments, fam. And until then, that is a wrap. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video helped. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing to my channel. And until then, I will see you on here again with another review tutorial, ABH extravaganza, or anime get ready with me. Take care, and I will see you again soon.